Hey everyone, I'm Jenna,
I'm Clint, and welcome to the Enchanted Parks and Ports podcast.
where we chat Disney, Universal Cruise Lines, and beyond.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, Jenna, to the Enchanted Parks and Ports podcast. We're taking a look in on this episode. We're actually going to be talking what it's like to arrive in Orlando before and right at the beginning of your trip. But before we get to that, Jenna, it's good to see you this week. How you doing?
It's good to see you. I'm doing well. Summer is in full swing now, and I love this specific episode topic because I feel like this is one that people kind of forget exists until they're into the planning of their Disney vacation, right? Like people are thinking about the resort, they're thinking about even like transportation to the park sometimes before they remember, oh yeah, I have to get from the airport to Walt Disney World. Like the plane does not drop me off at the castle. There is a step involved here. And before that, I have to take a plane to get to Orlando. And so how am I going to navigate the airport with my family, etc.? So I'm excited for this topic because it's something that I bring up with every client in terms of the options and tips and strategies.
Yeah, because the problem with this is if it goes well, you breeze into your vacation.
Yeah.
If it doesn't go well, man, your vacation starts out in a space that kind of builds on a negative vibe, right? And
Yeah.
that can be problematic then if in some way you get this kind of travel hangover into your resort, into your park days, that kind of stuff. So we definitely want to make this as smooth as we can for listeners and just give them some ideas and some thoughts.
Amazing. And there's like more than one way to do this, more than one way to get from said airport to said resort, and more than one way to navigate airports, etc. So I'm excited to kind of hear our different takes on that too and what our go-to plays are.
For sure. But before we get to that, we've got some news. Nothing like for this one that's earth shattering, but some things that are kind of cool.
I'm actually a little offended that you just said the boardwalk news is not earth-shattering because it feels earth-shattering to boardwalk fans. Like, what might as well start there. We're getting a quick service, everyone. A proper quick service question mark. Like, there's still some details left to be desired. But if Boardwalk had a way to get Mickey waffles in the morning that is not walk to a beach and yacht club, that would level up this resort more than it already has.
Well, and you know they're going to have to do that. I mean, if you can get Mickey waffles at a value resort, you've got to be able to get it at Boardwalk.
You got to get them at Boardwalk. And then we also have a new lounge coming. Looks like it will be maybe adult exclusive in the evenings is the vibe that I'm getting. Looks like some live music. I am like this area of Disney has so much to offer, and the fact that they keep leveling it up just makes me so happy. I think lots of people were sad with the loss of jelly rolls in that area, and so having something else that's coming is really exciting for Boardwalk fans. And I maintain this is the date night spot on Disney property, like over Disney Springs. Boardwalk area is the vibe. I love it.
Yeah, it definitely brings it when you start talking nightlife, some of those kinds of things. You're right. Jelly Rolls was a big loss to this area, but it is creating this opportunity now for them to do some renovation and include these things. The other thing that you're getting is a kind of a store and a bit of a boutique kind of store from what I saw. Right? You're getting some things that I think are going to be atypical Disney kinds of offerings. From what I saw just briefly, I think this is going to be kind of geared to as a type of upscale shopping a little bit within this area, which fits with the vibe.
Yeah, it totally fits with the vibe. I'm curious if they're going to continue, and I need to dig into this more. Maybe listeners have kind of tracked the nuance of this a bit more. But I'm curious if they're going to stick with the vibe of mostly exterior to the resort options, or if we're going to see, like, that makes sense to me. They're not going to like renovate the lobby. But I'm curious how the layout is actually going to flow in that area. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that turns out. But I love this area. Love that new things are coming, and you can stop by Cake Bake and get your banana pudding when you're checking it out.
Absolutely. All right, and jumping over to Epcot. Speaking of close to
I was
Boardwalk,
gonna say you're not jumping very far. You're stepping over to Epcot.
they've and this is something that happens with this park on occasion is kind of a pop-up space,
Yeah.
right? And in this case, they've done what they're calling a pop-up lounge. And it's an interesting kind of term when they're using the term lounge because typically I go to place of adult beverage, those kinds of things.
Sure.
And I do believe you can get that there, but it's different types of fares. They've got some specialty churros, some different things that are there. But really, I think what they've created is another air conditioned space for people to chill out and enjoy because that is so needed. I mean, in just a recent trip, we had a heat index of 108 degrees. It was toasty.
That's
We were
hot.
looking for air conditioning between rides, doing the whole thing. And with as large as Epcot Park is, finding those spaces can be a bit of a challenge. So the fact that they've themed something that is entertaining for families, they've given it some of its own food to be able to kind of be a draw, as well as the air conditioning. I say good job, Disney. It probably won't last because these things tend not to. But while it's here, it's located in the Odyssey Pavilion. So if you're familiar with Epcot, this is in that space that if you're walking from Guardians of the Galaxy kind of test track area over to Mexico, but you're not going down the main space and hanging the hard left. You're kind of using the sneaky path
Right.
on the far left hand side. You're walking right by it when you're by the bathrooms right there in the Odyssey Pavilion.
Yeah, and I think they called it lounge because what you said, which is another space to seek air conditioning because this park is big and it's hot, would have just been too long of a name. So they're like, I don't know, lounge. So as long as you're expecting the Clint version of this is an air conditioned space, they I saw some entertainment too, like some people doing some light like juggling things. So who knows? I think these are great additions, especially in summer, for them to pivot with. It's like goofy core, right?
Yep.
Getting to add that in for Cool Kids Summer is both fun and also practical.
For sure. So, as we kind of move away from the news, we're going to jump into our main topic here and chat about kind of that pre park, pre resort travel phase that
Yes.
all of us face when we're headed down to Orlando. And so, from that standpoint, you and I think we'll both bring a little bit of an interesting spin on this, given we're just at two different phases of life. But I want to ask, Jenna, so as you're thinking about your approach to the travel phase of your trip headed down to Orlando, what are some things that are top of mind where you're like, man, we got to nail this?
Okay, so there's a couple. But one we'll start with is make sure that when you are going to an unfamiliar airport, you do not check off avoid toll roads because if you've listened to past episodes, you heard my story maybe of narrowly thinking that it took double the time to get to the airport and panicking. So do some prep in terms of where you're going, but also the first thing I'm thinking of is just flight time too. For my family, that matters. For some people, you're choosing flights based on, I want to get there early and I want to maximize my park day. Or maybe it's, this is the cheapest or the best points redemption on this one, or this one works with my work schedule, whatever it is. For us, it is we want to leave on the earliest flight because we are 2.5 hours from an airport. We don't want to add the airport hotel in like toddler baby era because it's just one other transition to set up for. That totally works for a lot of families, but for us, it's like a we want to drive at night situation. So know thy family because for someone else, if you're 2.5 hours from an airport and on a 6 a.m. flight, maybe your go-to is stay in an airport hotel, right? Ours is we like doing that because the girls sleep that 2.5 hours, the first stretch of our travel day. And also, bonus points is we can pack up the car, we can get everything by the front door. We can be ready to go. And the house can stay clean. No one has woken up yet. We just pick them up in their pajamas and put them in car seats, as opposed to our recent trip where we left later in the day. And it was like just the whole day, the anticipation is a little too much at this age, right? And you're like cleaning up the house 17 times before you leave. So think about what actually works for your family. What is your go-to with booking flight times?
Yeah, I want to acknowledge something in what you just said though, Jenna, and it's that piece of recognizing with your kids that they have a reservoir of available energy,
Right.
right? And if I start tapping that at 4 o'clock, 4:30,
Mm-hmm.
by the time I get down to Orlando, I get checked in, and then now as adults, we're excited to go do things.
Yeah,
Man, my kid could be dragging by that time, and
exactly.
really now I've used my energy in a wrong phase. So
Yeah.
I like the way you describe that. One of the I also tend to be a early park or early flight kind of person.
No, you just
Um,
gave yourself away an early park kind of. You're like, I
that's
want to
also
get to
it,
the
but
park.
that's not why. With any more with flights, one of the things that is very challenging that I've kind of personally experienced is if I'm catching late flights, I'm giving more opportunity for delayed dominoes to start falling in
Yeah,
my travel sequence. Where if
absolutely.
I'm catching that first flight, literally it has to be a mechanical that keeps that flight from taking off on time,
Right.
which is going to be rare. So if I can be on that first flight, I believe I'm lessening my chances of flight delays, flight issues, those kinds of things throughout my travel phase. So I'm going to choose that. Is it a bonus that yes, I'm getting to Orlando earlier, which means if you're an annual pass holder, you have the choice of going to a park. If you're not an annual pass holder, there's still a lot to do on Disney as that we'll talk about as we talk about getting to the resorts. But to me, the biggest reason is I don't want to give the gremlins a chance to get a hold to my travel plans. And by getting out on one of the earliest flights and just kind of getting in progress helps me to just feel more secure. Now, that may
Yeah.
be a false hope, but it has helped as I've been traveling more recently.
No, I think statistically that has been shown to help. The other piece there, which is, maybe one of the travel gremlins, as you call it, is Florida weather, which has a tendency, especially this time of year, to have those mid-afternoon big storms, right? And typically, like flights can handle all kinds of things, but it is just to say that I would rather fly in early to potentially avoid trying to land in that.
So, as a toddler parent, let's say, okay, because what I expected you to say truthfully was kind of similar to what you choose to do in regard to cruises, because we
Mhm.
know Jenna's cruise is to be closer to when staterooms are ready. So
Yes,
I expected you to go, I'm going to choose a flight that puts my room availability
right.
in phase with my arrival so that I don't have to worry about checking bags at Bell Service,
Yes,
putting swimsuits on little kids to go to the
yes.
pool, this kind of stuff. So as you think about, so you're saying the chances of engaging energy around kids being longer is worth that trade-off for you.
Yes, also with a cruise, my room is not ready before 1:30. Period. End of story. That's not a thing that's going to happen for me. With a Disney resort, it doesn't have to be ready before 3 to 4 o'clock, but it can. And more often than not, I've rolled lucky on that lottery that it's reinforced the risk benefit of that. So one thing I'm
Okay.
also doing, I am for sure doing online check-in on my phone. I will check in at the desk when I get there again. Um, and when I do that, I'm indicating my arrival time is one of the options is like, I think it's before 11 or before 10 is the first option, something like that. Um, that is being selected, being submitted, because I'm trying to tell Disney, hey, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be waiting for a room. Just saying, if you have a room available, I would love one, right? That's what that is. So I am always doing that. I'm also likely calling in and requesting an early check-in. I don't know if that makes a difference, but I will say that like I've rolled lucky a lot of times on this.
Yeah, because Disney's going to try, if they have the information, they're going to try to meet your need.
Right.
Not guaranteed, as they say with a lot of things. However, they are going to make an effort. So I think, again, we know what the answer is if we don't ask.
Yeah, exactly. And I know what the answer is on cruise lines. They're saying staterooms are available at 1:30. So I'm going to plan around that because I haven't rolled lucky enough times that I'm willing to risk the loss of nap or whatever it is, right? Whereas this one, it's like I've more often than not been able to go and arrive pretty much in my room or not had a ridiculous wait. Like I get food, oh, the room's ready, something like that, right?
So I think as we think about travel, many of us are very comfortable with our local airport.
Yes.
Right? Like I can go to Colorado Springs Airport and it's like on autopilot.
Yes, totally.
But with that, as you think about navigating your local airport, is there anything that you do that you're like, I do this differently because I'm a toddler parent?
So I'm really curious to hear how you navigate this because I think we might be different in this. But checked bags versus carry-on priorities. This is an interesting conversation I have with a lot of people. My strategy as like a parent of kids who need many things is absolutely check as much as I humanly can. Like, you know, when you arrive at the gate and they're like, would you like to check your carry-on? Yes. Have I checked literally a backpack before? Sure have. I am not interested in carrying one extra thing when I am navigating the airport. And we try and get down to like a stroller, a diaper bag, and that's it. Because we do not want to be carrying extra things. It adds unnecessary stress if they're willing to check your carry-ons for you. So, my tip for people is really think about that. I understand the cost for some people is the prohibitive factor. For us, we prioritized a credit card that gave us free checked baggage on a particular airline. I know you prioritized a credit card that gives you some companion pass privileges. So that's maybe another tip for people is think about like what holds a lot of value for your family and do some research into credit cards that can support you with that. We're not like the experts on that, but do some investigating of what could really benefit your family. But let me tell you, we get our annual fees worth in checked baggage. That is for sure.
Yeah, and I think for those folks who it may not be in the budget, one of the things that I have noticed recently, without maybe many exceptions, is airlines are typically running full flights. Like
Yeah.
I have seen many airlines. And by the time they're getting down to, the last couple of boarding groups, they're begging people to check bags.
Yeah.
And
At
not
that
that you
point,
want to roll the dice for that, but that's
yeah,
what they're doing. And again, it could be an easy way to get rid of, you make everybody else feel like they're getting a win when you're getting a win because you're actually getting to unload some stuff as a toddler parent
yeah,
who's like, I need my hands free. I don't need to be toting bags.
exactly. I want to get rid of them earlier than that if I can. So I would even suggest people ask at when you're checking in for your flight at the desk, say, "Hey, are you offering to check carry-ons for free?"
It's a
And
great tip.
honestly, I've never had an airline be like, "No." I've had them be like, please, do you want all of them checked? So you can play the gamble game at the end, but at that point, like the value's a little bit lost for me. It does help with the chaos of boarding, etc. But at that point, I'm like weighing the risk of waiting for the bags. I want to get rid of them as soon as I get to the airport. So just ask and see what happens. If you're in the era of can I offload some things from my hands? So that's one of the tips. And then the other is just kind of like getting some prep down, which you probably have prep too. So I'm curious to hear, yeah, your take on that. But having that airport bag, like in our diaper bag, it's fun things, right? We're gonna
Yep.
have some new things that we've never
Yes.
tried, right? We're gonna have tried and true things that we know will be a hit, the tried and true snacks, whatever it is, right? Um, but one time Abby ate a whole can of Pringles because we were so desperate on a flight, and she was just chaos as a 2-year-old at one point. And someone offered her, one of the flight attendants offered her Pringles, and that kid ate the whole can. And I was like, what are we doing? But we just needed to get through that flight. So maybe bring like enough snacks, right?
No, I think that's a great thing is kind of playing the familiar versus novel, right?
Yeah.
Go familiar with your snacks. If
Yeah.
goldfish and Uncrustables and those things
Yeah.
are the given, because airport food, A, it's expensive, and B, you can't count on anything. Who knows what you're going to get, right?
No.
So don't roll the dice on there. And I think it can be a space to have that new novel, small toy, airport size thing, those kinds of things that allows your kid to be entertained for a couple of hours in a different way than they would have otherwise. I also think that those same things, then as you roll into a park, can also be like, I'm a huge fan for little boys of like new Hot Wheels cars, right?
Oh,
Because in a queue line, they are great. They're small, they're compact, they're easy, but they play all day and they play everywhere. It works. Little action figures, those kinds of things can be brilliant. I'm not saying you got to bring a 300-pound stuffy,
yeah.
but
Don't
some of these other
actually.
things that can be new and novel from that standpoint get a lot of play.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And they feel like a souvenir to them. Like they feel new, they feel exciting. So definitely do that. The other thing that I do, and I'm betting you do the same, is one of our backpacks is a park bag, like ready
Yes.
to go. Ready to go. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't need anything taken from anywhere, except sunscreen, because I want a big sunscreen. Although I saw you with your travel size sunscreen last time we traveled together, and I was like, huh, noted, that exists. I should get one of those. And then it could be a full park bag. But yeah, having that ready to go so you're not like having to repack things and organize and think about what you need if you are hitting a park or even the pool on your arrival and you're checking all those things at Bell Services. You can just kind of grab and go, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like having that bag that is it's almost like an embarkation bag, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a unit in and of itself that things haven't gone out of, that you're not missing things, like you were purposeful in packing it, and you're going to have the resources that you need when you get to the resort and you're ready to go. Whether, like you said, could be just hanging at the resort, could be
Yeah.
going to Disney Springs, whatever. So, yes, very different from you. I'm the kind that I am hanging on to my luggage because I don't want to have to go and wait on it for several,
Yeah.
minutes after a flight. I don't like, so I am definitely, unless it's I guess an unusually long trip in some way that would
Right.
force me to have a checked bag, I'm going carry on only, even if that means I have to pack more in my personal item, which
Right.
is typically a backpack, right?
Yeah.
So my extra shoes, my poncho, some of these bigger, bulkier things that aren't heavy, yeah, right into my personal item. And then I'm packing as tight as I can inside my carry-on. And one of the things that I'm going to encourage our listeners to do is, again, don't be that guy. And
Mm,
what I mean by this is with your carry-ons and your personal items, we all know as travelers who go to Walt Disney World on any kind of regular occurrence, there are sizes for these things, people.
yeah.
Like your airline says it must be this big.
And they will size it at times, and it will feel horrible if it is not that big.
And I have seen more recently, and I understand, yes, you need whatever you have in your bag. And you don't want to pay the fee to do a checked bag. I get it.
Yeah.
But I have seen people overstuffing bags on the regular,
Yeah.
and now they're getting into a fight with the airline knowing that you started in a place you shouldn't have been in the beginning.
Yes, I know. This is why I'm team checked bag. Can we get a credit card that gives us checked baggage and I'll move on with our lives? So,
If
yeah,
that's the need, then yes, do that. Don't be that guy.
don't be that guy. But if you can be Clint and just have your carry on and then hop right to your ride so you don't have to wait at MCO, which I will say, is the luggage always efficient at MCO? No, it's not. Prepare
Rarely.
thyself accordingly, right? It's fun to arrive and be there, but then it's this pause of, oh, I need my things.
It is, and I think if you're not prepared for that,
Yeah.
that prolonged wait and combined with your level of anticipation can get to annoyance real fast.
Oh, for sure. You have to emotionally prepare for the luggage thing and prepare your children, right? Because they also might think that you're flying into the castle, right?
Yes.
Like they also need to know that that's not what's actually happening.
And I'm going to give, so we've taken our flight.
Yeah.
Like, is there, again, I think not so much for us as pure adults, is there anything that's really wild or crazy about sitting on an airplane? Right? I mean, but as you think about maybe managing toddlers in the air, on an airplane, those kinds of things, I haven't done it in 15 years, so I have no idea, no vocabulary for this. But you probably do. So are there any like on plane tips that you go, this is something a new toddler parent flying for the first time needs to know, or somebody who hasn't flown with a toddler in a really long time needs to know?
I would say it's all in the prep, right? It's in the bag that you have the fun things. It's also in knowing when your toddler needs their own seat. And this is hard because the airline says two, but Abby for sure needed her own seat at 15 months because that kid was walking at 9 months, running at 10 months. And like it just, I could not have physically held her if I wanted to. She needed to be in a car seat. Like that needed to happen.
No,
Um,
it would have looked like a wrestling match, right?
oh,
Because
for
she's going to want to be
sure.
up and down and up and down and up and down. And I think to some degree, they need that space
Yeah.
when they can be unbuckled, right? You get this little, I don't know, it's almost like having a plane sized pack and play.
Yes. Oh, totally. Like the because you can bring your car seat onto a flight as long as it's flight approved. And that's a familiar seat to her too. So that was really useful I fall asleep in this in the car. I can fall asleep in this in the plane. I know how this feels. This is familiar. This is safe feeling to me, right? So that was really valuable to her. Now we have a December cruise booked. And we currently have 3 plane tickets booked for with an infant ticket. Now, Quinn will be 15 months in December, but Quinn is Quinn and Abby was Abby. And I think it'll be okay. I don't know. Talk to me in December and I might be regretting my choices.
I'm going to say you've got a shot only because we know Quinn has a slightly different constitution up until this point than her sister does.
She's just like a very like I'm quiet. I'm happy with my books. Abby's an explorer. She's making best friends with the airline staff. She's the life of the party, which I love for her. And it's just a very different vibe. One of those requires a seat earlier than the other, right?
Completely agree.
So anyway, know your kid and maybe think about the airline says when you should buy a seat, and it might be a different time than when you should buy a seat.
And you just said something, and I apply this to all locations in relative proximity to a Disney vacation, right? And that is know your kid.
Know your
Because here's the thing, I think sometimes as parents we forget is our kid is still going to be our kid even when they're on vacation. Like
This
their
is true.
behaviors and needs don't change
Yes.
just because you're on vacation.
Right. Ours do as adults, but theirs don't. right? Like my eating habits drastically change on vacation. But theirs just don't, or it increases what they need in terms of like 1,000 snacks. So, like, think about kind of, yeah, some of that stuff and preparing them accordingly, letting them know there's going to be a drive when we get off the plane. Because that has been devastating before to Abby of I just did that flight. Now we have to get in the car. How long is the car ride, right? So just doing a little bit of preparing for the steps of this trip is also another one. So that's not quite as shocking as it was her first time. But how are you like let's do an overview of kind of I see three main ways that you're getting from MCO to a Disney resort.
Can we
Oh,
do a
back
couple
up.
of things about MCO itself first before we get to
Absolutely.
that?
Yes, tell me.
Because I think a couple of things for just listeners to know is, as an overall airport, for me, MCO is on the smaller side.
Yeah,
Right?
it's
It's
very
it's
easy to
not a
flow.
massive airport like we have here in Denver, you get in Atlanta or some of these places.
Toronto.
It's a relatively small airport. But even with that, you do have one train transfer
Yes.
that you have to make from your terminal to the main terminal. It takes all of about 3 minutes.
Yeah, and you can't get like I always see first time MCO travelers being like, "Is this the train?" And like, yes, it just goes back and forth between the two spots. You're good. Just get on the train.
Yeah, follow everybody else. It's super
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
And it's going to be relatively quick to get on, right? Because it does go back and forth really quick. So don't feel like you're going to have to wait 15 minutes for a train. I think in some of these larger airports that we get used to navigating, you feel like I got to make the next train or it's going to feel like a life sentence till I get to the one after that.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And it's not like that. It's
No.
a very quick kind of breeze over, and then you head down those escalators to baggage claim. Yeah, that's the other thing to kind of keep in mind is some people get a little confused about, oh, wait, where am I going? Why am I going down? Yes, you go down one level to baggage claim there.
So the other thing that I'm going to kind of just warn our listeners about is at MCO, like many older airports, signage is not wonderful for
Mm,
certain aspects. And I'll be honest, it tripped us up on our recent trip big
mm,
time. So the one thing that I'm going to say is if you're catching rideshare, you're catching a car service, you're doing some of
yeah,
these kinds of things, where you meet that at MCO is a little bit interesting from the standpoint that it's got 3 levels
yeah.
overall at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all your signage that is readily available is telling you ground transportation is all the way at the bottom.
Right.
Well, guess what's not with ground transportation?
Rideshare.
Rideshare.
Yeah.
It's so if you go down to the bottom level and you're looking around, and many of the numbers that you would be using on both of those levels are similar. If you're
Right.
looking for stall number 32, guess what? There's a stall number 32 on the ground transportation floor.
Yes.
There's also one on the arrivals departures floor
Yeah.
where you meet your ride shares. So just don't get confused, because what we ran into is some of the escalators that you might take up and down
Mm-hmm.
skip that second floor. They go directly to the ground and directly to level 3, skipping the one in the middle.
Right.
The easiest way we found to get where you want to go is use the elevator. I'm
Yes.
elevator averse typically
Yes.
in an airport. I love an escalator versus an elevator.
Mm-hmm.
At MCO, take the elevator.
Take the elevator, which to us is known as the alligator, because when Abby was in the like I can talk, but also some words are not computing phase, she would call it the alligator, and I refuse to give that up. So I will continue calling it the alligator, even though she can now say elevator.
Yeah, no, that's one of those things that will stick, right? Like, even into adulthood,
Yeah.
she's going to know that the alligator is what it once was called.
That's what we're taking. And the escalator is the up and down.
Oh, there we go. I like that.
which is
Okay, that sounds very European, right?
it,
We're going to take the
exact
up and down.
the up and down, which also like alligator to me sounds more like escalator and up and down fits elevator. But anyway, you don't question it. You go with these things.
Yep,
So
you never question the toddler knowledge, right? It's
take
superior.
take the elevator at MCO and make sure you look for the signs that say like ride share pickup. That will be your go-to at MCO to find your Uber. Generally, availability wise, what have you found with rideshare?
Pretty easy. I mean, you're gonna have to wait a few minutes for
Yeah.
them to get in to the area. Typically, we end up waiting, I don't know, 7 to 10 minutes for a ride share. Again, be careful of like I'm gonna get it right before I get, because if you get turned around, there's a good chance your ride share is going to get canceled. And that's what happened to us on this last trip was
Yeah.
we were like, yeah, we know. So we, as we were getting off the train, we're kind of putting it on order. It shows up and then we're struggling to find the right floor, even though we're experienced, because I'm like, we're not where we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay. And sure enough, ended up canceling the trip, which
Mm.
means we had to pay the penalty fee and all the stuffs, right? So typically for me, it's one of those things of, slow your roll a little bit, wait until you're at the right location, and then order up your Lyft or Uber and be on your way.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I often have clients asking me if they should book ahead for their Uber, and I always say no because, and like, not in this case. With your cruise debarkation, if you want to, sure. But for arriving at MCO, there's just too many variables. Is your flight late? How long does it take to grab the tram? Is your luggage first or last off the carousel? Like, it's just better to, yeah, just book it when you pull up. And you don't typically have to wait long. You might hit surge pricing, you might not. Like pricing is pretty variable. That is one thing about rideshare that I will highlight is it tends to be a little bit of a roll of the dice with Disney back and forth.
It is. So we're talking about RedShare, which is one of the three
Yeah.
ways you can easily get to and from. It is our go-to. Again, being an adults only family for a long time, it tends to be, in my experience, the least expensive of the options. And to your point, I would suggest around it also is have both the Uber and the Lyft app available to you, because we have noticed there are pricing differences between the two different companies at any given point while you're on a trip. And so don't just take something at face value, check both apps, give yourself the option, and go with the cheaper, because you're not getting an appreciable difference in product given either of the services.
Absolutely. And with that, one other tip is as you're standing, waiting for your Uber or Lyft, whatever you found the better price on, as you're standing on this platform, there's a chance that you will be approached by a vehicle saying, I'm an Uber, I can pick you up, just cancel your ride and I'll take you. Don't take that vehicle, my friends. I like the chances of that just going sideways in some way, shape, or form in terms of potential of being overcharged or something like that is like we don't need to go there. Just wait for your assigned ride, right? So I always like to highlight that they do have signs on that floor that say that. I don't think it's like I've never felt unsafe personally waiting at MCO, but also just like use some common sense around how you're navigating rideshare.
Completely agree. So what are the other ways that you typically use to get to and from MCO?
Well, at this stage in our life, when we're not doing adults only, we often do rideshare. But when we are with kiddos or even like one other set of adults, we will do a private transfer. There's a bunch of private transfer companies in Orlando that do this run primarily from MCO to Disney resorts and back. My favorite is Gear Fusion. I've had great experience with them time and time again. Never heard negative feedback from one of my clients who's used them. So that always gives me some confidence. And they will meet you right at baggage claim, help with your baggage to the vehicle. They actually get to park, Gear Fusion in particular, some other ride service companies as well, but they park in a separate designated area, super easy to access. Load up your stuff. Car seats have been installed, waiting in the vehicle for the girls. They always message me in advance and specify, like, how old are they? Are they rear facing or forward facing? Do you want the 5 point harness? Like these things that matter a lot when you're a parent and mean nothing if you're like, you have no context of this. That feels really good to me when that's all set up, ready to go. Step into the nice AC and away you go. So it's a super easy breezy experience. Does it come at a premium? Yes, potentially. Depends how many people are in your vehicle and your other options, right? I know fellow toddler parents who are saying, but Jenna, Uber car seat exists. Technically, it does in Orlando. I see this face. You're like,
But my question is, and does it? Right? Because you want to talk about a roll of the dice. I don't trust it. I know, like, if I'm not bringing my own car seat, then I'm going one of the other two options. I am not trusting the Uber car seat. I just don't think it's reliable enough. I think you can end up gambling a lot of time waiting at the airport. Your frustration can get pretty high, and you don't feel like you have any control because honestly, you don't.
yeah. Yeah, we tried on a trip that we brought our car seat out of sheer curiosity, and we could not get an Uber car seat. Had we not had one, I'm not really sure what the plan would have been. So, this is one of those, like, yes, I know technically speaking it exists and you might get lucky, but you might not. So, Uber car seat is only if you're bringing the car seat and putting it in an Uber. That is the only scenario. Otherwise, if you want to not travel with your car seats, like private transfers, that's just the way to go. There is another option, which we'll get to, but that is if you are telling me I can do one splurge with my family at Walt Disney World, like honestly, I'm picking private transfers over like character dining. It might be dramatic to say, but it just truly changes the feel of going into the trip, the chaos of travel day. I just don't want to add hauling car seats around to that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think given a splurge and save, I'm going to try to find a way to save someplace else
Yeah.
and splurge on this. And again, I don't know that if, Lyft and Uber aren't the option, that it's really that much of a splurge when we start talking about the big shuttle services, which tend to be Mears Connect,
Yeah.
because Disney's not running their own anymore. And so you're working through one of these other companies. And depending on the number of people in your party, you can get to break even on a car service pretty quick.
You totally can, right? Especially when your kiddos are above 3 and all of a sudden they're being charged for these things. Like, run the numbers because would I rather spend time on a shuttle bus or in a private car service? Every time a private car service, right? The other thing is it's just truly the most efficient way to get to your resort, right? They're going to meet you in the airport at baggage claim, walk you to the vehicle, drive you directly to your resort. Rideshare, you're doing some waiting, potentially some like, oh no, they're turned here instead of here, etc. Mirrors you, which is the last option, which is a shuttle service. You can book in advance, and it will take you directly to Disney resorts, but not necessarily yours. You might have other stops along the way. They say limited stops, but it can like that can add up in time. And because of those stops on your way back, you also need to leave for the airport much earlier than you might otherwise, which does cut into that last day. I book it for clients. I'm happy to book it for folks who want to do it. If you have 2 people in your party, it's probably the most affordable way, but I prefer the private car service.
Yeah, I think for me, to your point, at that point that you've got roughly four paying adults,
No.
I think that's really kind of your break even point because if I'm remembering right, Mears is running about 75 to 80 for round trip service. Am I wrong on that?
Or I want to say it's that much if you're looking at 2 people. Like it's like
Yeah.
35-ish round trip, 36-ish. Fact check us, friends, because clearly we need to go look at these numbers. These are not an official quote. This is Clint and Jenna trying to remember. So I like that number, it beats Uber with two people.
It does.
But when you get to four, it's starting to look a little bit different. And certainly if you're doing something like we did on our last trip where there was, well, I guess two of them were littles, but I'd rather them not ride on my lap for multiple stops on a bus. But yeah, we had the grandparents with us as well, right? So splitting a vehicle with them also made a difference to us.
Yeah, I think that piece of what am I saving between the private car service and using something like Mears is now I'm paying in my time, right? Because I'm typically waiting for other guests to show up to catch the shuttle. Then I'm waiting to go to other resorts before I get to mine. And let's be honest, in that moment that your feet hit the pavement in MCO, the last thing you want to be doing is waiting.
Yes, you just want to go. You just want to have fun, do the thing. And I totally get it of like this can make the most sense for people, or it's just what they're familiar with. Because maybe you've done it before, maybe you did the Magical Express, RIP, and this is just what you know is taking the shuttle, but there are other ways, my friends, that are reliable.
Very much. Okay, so you've gotten to your resort, and what's your typical play here? Like again, hoping that your room is ready. So and I'm always a fan of the let me try to check in at the resort, right?
Yeah.
I can do it on the mobile app, and yes, I can sit around and wait for the app to tell me my room is ready.
Mhm.
Or I can increase my chances of that occurring by spending the time. And even at the busiest of check-in times, there are plenty of cast members available in the lobby to help get you through. I have waited very short times
Yes.
for a cast member to greet me and help to process my reservation in hopes of getting into my room right away.
Oh yeah, it's pretty speedy. And I will say like with doing that check-in in person too, people can talk you through options. Like I had at my Caribbean Beach check-in in February, they said, "Hey, listen, I know you requested a ground floor, which we want to do with the double stroller at Caribbean Beach because there are no elevators." And they said, I don't have a ground floor room ready. So choices for you right now. I can put you in a room that is ready on the second floor right now, or you can wait and get the notification in the app and have a ground floor. Which I would love to know that choice, right? If I just
Yeah.
am waiting on the app, they're taking my decision for me, which is, oh, they requested ground floor. We're waiting for that room that we've assigned them. Whereas when I talked to the actual person, there was a bit more wiggle room and flexibility. There isn't always, but in that case, there was. So talk to a human.
I think the other thing, and again, this isn't a Disney guarantee, but it
Mhm.
is the one thing that I suggest. Like, again, if you don't give yourself the opportunity, you know what the answer is, right?
Yeah.
Is we have heard on a rare occasion of people getting pixie dusted to other resorts as an upgrade option.
Mm.
And the thing is, that doesn't happen through the online only system,
Mm.
right? You have to interface with a cast member in order for this magic to happen. So
Mhm.
again, my suggestion is check in with the cast member. What's the worst that happened? It costs you 5 minutes of your life. You
Yeah.
get to make sure that yes, your magic band's going to work once you get to your room, which is another challenge sometimes. Like you
That's
get
right.
all of that ironed out, and maybe if the Disney gods are smiling favorably upon you, this magic happens for you.
Yeah. And I will say the magic usually happens when you don't ask but are very kind, right? So we never guarantee these things. Been to Disney tons of times and we've been pixie dusted in some way with our room one time, right? So this is a like keep in mind this is not guaranteed and we should not go into it with an entitled I deserve this attitude. underline bold font. Everyone, please don't ruin this for everyone. And should it happen, that's great. So we just want to be super kind and welcoming to, or not so welcoming necessarily, but kind and courteous to cast members. They'll probably be welcoming to you because you're the one arriving. But we did have a pixie dusted to a fireworks view room once at Wilderness Lodge. It was great. I think
Yeah,
you're more
that's pretty
likely,
amazing.
yeah, like I think you're more likely to hit things like that if you have a short stay or something like that too. So there's certain things that, the Disney gods are calculating behind the scenes with this. It's not just you were kind, so you get a room upgrade.
So, Jenna, as we think about resort arrival, what are some options once I'm on
Yeah.
property if I don't have a park ticket ready to go
Mm-hmm.
and I'm there with enough time that it's not like let's prep for tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's a pretty easy formula of we need some play and relaxing. Right? I've done, even if I have a park ticket option for that day, I prefer to not on arrival day. Even if I, and these might be fighting words, Clint, had an annual pass, I don't think I'd go on a fly-in arrival day. I understand that I can now. This is less of a scarce resource, but I just need to chill out for a minute, not to do any other transportation, even though it's efficient, with an exception of like where I'm staying might dictate some of that. If I was staying at Contemporary, could I pop over to Magic Kingdom? Sure. If I'm staying at, Boardwalk, could I go to Epcot? Sure, that seems reasonable. But it kind of depends where I'm staying. So, yes, there is in theory an option to go to a park. I would always prefer a pool, playground, chill out. We're on vacation. Let's let that land. Let's get settled in the room. And then maybe because we've had that downtime, we have a chance at a dinner. We have a chance at some kind of love to kick it off with a character meal that's maybe at a resort or something like that. We're starting the magic, but it's still kind of lower paced. That's my
Yeah, and I think, again, to your point, if you've been nursing kids through this process, right, of travel. So
hmm
they have survived airport number one. They
Yes.
have survived the flight. Airport number two, they have, put up with having to get a ride now to the resort. If I'm a kid, I'm done waiting,
Yes.
right? I am at that point where, darn it, it's time to do something.
I'm going in
And
that pool.
And the fastest do, to your point, is right there at the resort, whether it's a playground, whether it's a pool,
Yeah.
the arcade, whatever it is. This is a chance for me to start engaging in some fun.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to suggest for parents is get that groove started as quickly as possible.
Yes, we need to have some fun ASAP. It's urgent. Fun is urgent for everyone, probably, right? Love a resort with a splash pad with littles too, because then as a parent, I also get to sit for a minute. There can be some, splash pad running down the slide, up the climber, down the slide, up the climber, down the slide, right? And I can sit and watch that in a gated area and enjoy seeing my child nearby, but also sitting. So I love that, or a pool that has like decent shade or a water slide, like something we can all enjoy together, right? So that is my play. Now, your play, I'm betting, is different and has changed again, given that you are an annual pass holder now. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think I'm still going to come at it from the standpoint that most people flying in are going to be on a date-based ticket, right? And so I think if you're in this mode of having older kids or, adults only, Disney Springs is the option, right? I think it's a great place to plan your first dining experience, right? They've got some great options over there. You can get your first tastes of merchandise and souvenir shopping and some of those kinds of
Magic
things.
hands, if you need those, right?
Yep, and then you've just got a lot of kind of novel nightlife that exists in this space that is wonderful. And so, for me, the tried and true on a resort or on a check-in day at the resort is kind of a Disney Springs move. I think the other option that is year-round is do some resort hopping.
Yeah.
Like find a lounge, go see some places that you're not staying, like explore, get a little bit of an adventurous spirit. Those are great moves. Take a little more coordination than like a Disney Springs direct, kind
Yeah.
of visit. And then I think the last one that we have available right now to folks on their check-in day is you can access a water park as long as your flight in timing is right and allows that.
Yeah, this is true. And I will say, I've noticed a couple card providers, including Gear Fusion, offering for like a slight, I think it's like a $10 fee or something, to add a stop to your resort to drop your bags. So you can drop them with bell services and then drive you to the water park. That is the pro move because one thing with the water parks is depending on your resort, they're a bit tricky to get to on transportation. It can take over an hour, which think about that on an arrival day, over an hour
Yeah.
on buses. Or I can hop back in this vehicle and get there in 8 minutes, and I have car seats. So Uber's out for my family unless I have this scenario. So that I think is a really great offer. So if you are going the luxury private transportation route, take a look at what they offer in terms of second stop on water park days.
And another reason, like if I'm prioritizing
Yeah.
getting in early enough to go to a water park and leverage this portion of my free trip to the
Yeah.
water parks, right? It's worth spending an extra little bit to, man, maybe this tips me towards getting the private car service
Totally.
and doing this as a stop because yeah, that's saving me on the time side, which is what I want to be doing at the parks, right? I
Yeah.
want to get to that water park as fast as possible.
Yeah, they also like close at typically 5, 6 o'clock. So your day hours are more limited. So unless you're taking that first flight, you want to make sure you get some good water park time in if that's a priority.
For
So
sure. All right, before we jump over, and I think you've got a little bit of a devious save or splurge
would you
for me.
rather
Oh, would
actually?
you rather for
Hmm.
me? And so, from that standpoint, any other tips, any other tricks that you want listeners to know? Like, do these things on your arrival day to just kind of smooth out your transition into your vacation.
I think we've covered a lot of them. One that I will say too is take a picture of the tag Bell Services gives you when they hand that to you, just because they'll ask for the last four digits, and the last thing you need is to have lost that and been like, oh, well, it's Mitchell in this room. But if they just want those last four digits, it's so nice to have it handy, ready to go, right? So I would check for that. And yeah, in terms of arrival day, I think that pretty much covers it. It's a kind of prepare in advance is one of the themes for how you're going to get there, book in advance. If you have a stroller rental or something like that, that's another thing to factor into your resort potentially. But have fun, arrive and start having a good time at Disney.
Yeah, to your point, a little bit of preparation around this day. I mean, you prepare so much for a Disney trip anyway if you're doing it well and you're doing it right.
Yeah.
And obviously, people who are listening to this podcast are trying to do that.
Hmm.
I think sometimes we can, because it seems like I'm just flying down there.
Right.
And there are just so many moving parts that I think just a little bit of effort and thought goes a long way on this day.
Yeah. No airport at the castle.
Nope. All right. So, would you rather for me?
Okay, yes. Would you rather? Oh, yes, this is me. I'm up. Okay. This is a would you rather, but you said save or splurge, and now I'm like, actually, it could be both. So
Okay.
stay with me. But we'll start with it as a would you rather. Would you rather, in the spirit of Clint's recent annual pass purchase, would you rather an annual pass or DVC? which is known as Disney Vacation Club, Disney's timeshare service. It's a complicated thing that we're not going to get into right now, but I am going to inquire.
So when you say annual pass, because
Hmm.
DVC is lifetime opportunity, right?
Hmm. This is lifetime annual pass.
Okay. I wow. I'm going to go lifetime annual pass.
See, I thought you would go that route, and I'm interested because the math would support, just the math would probably support DVC as better value.
Yeah, I think it depends on like there's because I've looked at DVC and I think one of the things that I struggle with is this concept of you have to buy in at enough points
For what
for
you
it to
want.
be functional.
Yes.
And my thought when I ask this question is I don't see a world where I have the dollar bucks to
Right.
buy in at a level that makes the offset worth it, right? For me to not have to worry about park tickets on any trip that I choose to take, and now I'm worried about resort and food only kind of situation,
Yeah.
that's a big stress off.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, even with DVC, even though you get discounts in regard to a lot of things, you're not going to, it's still not free.
Yes.
Right. And I know that with an annual pass, you still have to purchase a resort, which makes it not free.
Right.
But a portion of my trip is totally covered, where even with DVC, it's one of these things that it's covered to a certain degree and a certain extent.
Yes. And these are both scenarios where like this choice is really for Disney adults, right? This is
Oh,
like
yeah.
you're really hitting Disney hard. This is not the average person probably listening to this podcast, but I was
No.
intrigued to know. So
Yeah, but I think, and we'll get to this, I think a little more, but much as you've described the value proposition that exists with a or a Disney dining plan,
Mhm.
I feel like there's a value proposition different that exists with an annual pass. It's
Yeah.
not just about breaking even on the number of park days. There
It's
is a freedom and stress free that exists when you
mm,
get one.
I was gonna say it's about the magnet too,
It
right?
is about
But
the
it's
magnet.
not, it was the freedom and stress-free park days, right? That, but also the magnet.
Yep, it is. All right. So for this episode, we hope that our listeners have gotten something out of this as you think about your next trip down to the Land of the Mouse in Orlando, Florida, and to Walt Disney World. We hope that we've given you some things to think about in that transition period between leaving your house and getting to your resort. That is always that initial travel day. And so if you've liked this content, subscribe to the podcast, shoot us out a 5-star Apple Podcast review. We'd love to read it on the air. We're on the socials. You can follow us, and we are definitely in kind of our travel season where we're hitting the parks a lot. We're starting to do some things. We've got some stuff going. So, Jenna, they can find us at.
At Enchanted Parks and Ports on Instagram, follow us, and you'll get episode updates as well as some updates while we are traveling. Clint has a cruise and Disney World coming up, so whatever you're interested in, it will be on there.
All right. And so, Jenna, for another week, let's remind our listeners.
Adventure is out there. Bye, everyone.